Tonight on Nova.
I'm so excited.
Ruth Pointer, nearing menopause, gives birth to twins. Aileen Lee, just out of college, finds herself unexpectedly in menopause.
I'd never heard of the phrase hot flash before.
Science offers these women options never available to their mothers. But are they right for everyone?
It doesn't hit you that she's going through menopause, it just hits you that she's just being a pain in the neck.
What's new about menopause?
Funding for Nova is provided by Lockheed, America's aerospace company, supporting math, science, and engineering education for national technology leadership.
And by Merck, dedicated to pharmaceutical research, committed to discovery, improving health, extending life. Merck.
Major funding for Nova is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by annual financial support from viewers like you.
And I just can't hide it. Make it so easy. I'm about to lose control and I think I like it.
The Pointer Sisters, international pop stars of the 1980s, are preparing for a comeback.
And I want to. You shouldn't have to.
Ruth Pointer, the eldest sister, is still a powerhouse of talent and energy.
I always feel like I'm getting better. It's just the way life is. It teaches you things, and the more things you learn, the better you get at living.
And that same day you'll be excited too. Let's get excited.
Now in her late 40s, Pointer is ready for second chances and new beginnings in her professional life and in her personal life.
You'll get excited. Don't make it. Come on and try it.
Ruth Pointer is a woman in middle age and at the approach of menopause. She is also the new mother of infant twins.
We're going for those pleasures in the sky. I want to love.
The birth of 5-month-old Connor and Allie shows how medical science is changing menopause, the profound midlife transition in the female body. Menopause has always meant the end to childbearing and the inevitable passage into older age, but not anymore.
I'm about to lose. When Mike and I first started to talk, early in our relationship, I said, well, you know, I'm 47 and I just don't know if I can have a family or not. And you don't have any children, so you might want to reconsider. And at that time, we really didn't know anything about the new technology that they were doing with in vitro fertilization or the donors or anything like that. And a girlfriend told me about it, and it just really just broadened everything.
The generation of women now at the brink of middle age, in this country some 20 million strong, approach a menopause unimagined by their mothers. Today, science presents them with options that defy the limits of their biology. Women can bear children after menopause, or they can take hormone therapies to forestall some of the rigors associated with the passage into older age. As each woman enters the change, she will confront tough decisions about whether these options are right for her.
Beginning of my senior year in college, I was running a lot, and I also wasn't getting my period. And I went to go see a doctor, and she told me not to worry about it because a lot of young women who run a lot don't get their periods. After I graduated from college, I hadn't gotten my period in almost a year. When I was starting my new job, I was going through training, and sitting in the classes, I would start to get very, very hot all of a sudden, and I'd have to take my jacket off, and then I would get cold and put it back on again, and it happened a couple times an hour, and people would remark to me, you know, are you okay? And I said, I think so, but I just didn't understand it. I'd never heard of the phrase hot flash before.
Aileen Lee didn't know it yet, but hot flashes are a common sign of the approach of menopause. But why would an apparently healthy 21-year-old have hot flashes and missed periods? Lee decided it was time to see another doctor.
When the doctor first told me that I had premature menopause or premature ovarian failure, I just, I felt really empty inside. And I think the following days after that, my emotions went up and down. At times I felt almost like not a whole woman. I feel kind of helpless because there's not much I can do. You can read all these different articles, but you can't do anything about what's happening. And another frustration is that I don't know what's happening.
Her doctors had no ready answers, for there is much that is not known about premature menopause and its effects.
When I found out that there was a doctor at the NIH who was doing research on premature menopause, there's no question in my mind that I would try anything I could to find out what he was doing or what he knew and get myself there to meet with him.
Be safe. Okay. I'll look for you in that mission, okay?
Okay.
Today, with her mother, Aileen Lee arrives at the National Institutes of Health Clinical Center to try and find out what has gone wrong for her. Larry Nelson directs research into the causes of premature menopause and into possible therapies.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
Good.
For Aileen Lee, his work may be her best hope for a chance at fertility.
It's definitely been hard sometimes, especially maybe if I were a little bit older and I were married and I had one partner that could go through it with me and I could talk to him about it. That might make it easier, but I guess because I'm kind of solo right now, it makes it hard sometimes.
Most patients we see here with premature ovarian failure, when they tell us about how they first found out about the problem, describe that time as a loss, that information as a great loss. What I'd like to do is explain the parts of the body that play a role in having the ovaries function normally.
Okay.
And the parts of the body playing a key role here is number
Nelson
one,
describes the normal menstrual cycle and menopause.
Pituitary, and of course the ovaries and the uterus.
During a woman's reproductive years, each month, chemical signals from the pituitary stimulate the ovaries to develop follicles. These follicles then produce the essential female hormone, estrogen. At ovulation, a follicle releases an egg. The hormone progesterone is then produced and prepares the lining of the uterus for pregnancy. If fertilization occurs, this lining nourishes the embryo. If not, hormone levels drop and menstruation begins. With age, a woman's stock of viable eggs decreases and egg release becomes irregular. Hormones fluctuate, the so-called perimenopause. When ovaries no longer have viable eggs, usually in a woman's late 40s to early 50s, estrogen levels drop dramatically. Soon she stops menstruating altogether. This is menopause. But why would this happen to Aileen Lee, decades earlier than to most women? Blood tests confirm previous findings. Her estrogen level is low, like that of an older woman after menopause. Now Lee waits for a test that will determine the impact of such low estrogen on her bones. Estrogen helps protect women from osteoporosis, or thinning bones.
I'm kind of looking forward to this because this is one of the tests I haven't gotten done yet.
Actually, I know a lot of older ladies that actually have bone mass test done just to make sure they know that they're not losing bones, because a lot of people have osteoporosis problem.
With low estrogen, Lee is at increased risk for developing osteoporosis. This X-ray scan of her spine will reveal whether or not she has the expected bone density of an average 20-year-old, or if her early menopause has already reduced her bone mass.
Is there something that you can see on the screen?
Well, we're getting a printout of the spine.
I'm definitely a little bit nervous. A bad outcome would be that I've already received a lot of damage to my bone, and ideally I'd love to find out that my bones are in great shape and I've been doing everything right.
So the bone density in the spine is normal.
Normal?
Which means that their estrogen deficiency hasn't caused a problem with your bone density in the spine, which is good news.
Good, that's very good. Not above average though?
A little above average.
Oh really?
Mm-hmm.
What I want you to do is scoot up just a couple inches.
Her bones haven't suffered significantly from estrogen deficiency, and we will be able to maintain estrogen effect by giving her medication to replace the hormone that her ovaries would normally be making. So we should be able to maintain her bone density with appropriate therapy.
Now Lee faces the most critical test of all, the ultrasound of her ovaries.
Normally ovaries are about the size of a walnut, okay? And in people with ovarian failure, sometimes they decrease in size, and so they'd be a size of maybe a half a grape or something like that.
So this is kind of the greatest detail that anybody can see right now.
Right.
This ultrasound could reveal the crucial information of whether Lee's ovaries still contain eggs. As they age, all women lose eggs. The ovaries of a female fetus contain millions of eggs, all that she will ever have. By puberty, about 300,000 survive, each encased in a fluid-filled sac, or follicle. Here is an adult ovary. Although thousands of eggs remain, few will ever mature. The rest simply deteriorate over the years. When very few viable eggs remain, on average at about age 51, menopause occurs. Here in a postmenopausal ovary, there is scar tissue from follicles that have released eggs in the past, but no evidence of new developing follicles.
Well, Aileen, the doctor says sometimes...
Aileen Lee awaits the final results of the ultrasound to learn whether any follicles were seen. If not, hopes for her own child fade.
And whatever it is, we want to know, right? And we can deal with it, right?
Okay, we just finished a scan on Eileen. This is the transabdominal. Transvaginals aren't back yet, but I don't think it's going to give us really any more information. The ovary, the right ovary, and the left ovary. Okay, but there's no follicles developing.
So at this time, there's no follicles developing?
No, at this time.
Ovarian tissue. Can I come in?
Yeah. I go through phases where it definitely frightens me because maybe I won't be able to have children. I don't really know what's going to happen.
I just wanted to meet with you to wrap things up about what we've done here so far and what it means.
Okay, good.
I think most important on the list is overall you're healthy. We haven't found any other problems other than the fact that the ovaries don't seem to be making female hormones. And we found no large developing follicles. So that's what the pelvic ultrasound means. We find
Nelson confirms the sad news, though he cannot tell Lee why it has occurred. But there is good news. With treatment, she can maintain the hormone levels of a young woman. And with egg donation, she has the option of having a baby.
If you're interested in fertility right away, we need to do an ovarian biopsy.
I'm grateful for these reproductive technologies because they push the boundaries so much further. And having premature menopause, taking hormone therapy kind of puts me on the same playing field as a normal woman my age. And if their hormone levels are here and mine are here, it just kind of brings me up to where everyone else is.
For Aileen Lee, her choices are clear. Her premature menopause is a medical condition, and with the help of medical science, she can lead the life of a healthy young woman. But how does a woman in her 40s or 50s decide if her menopause calls for treatment as well? Today, all women are confronted with a virtual medical fountain of youth and tough choices about whether to drink from it or not. When she was in her late 40s, author Gail Sand moved to St. Augustine, Florida.
I like that I'm next to the fountain of youth. It gives me a little hope every once in a while that maybe it does exist. Maybe it'll rub off. I am, in my own way, very conscious about the way I look, very conscious about getting older. It's difficult. I don't want to get old. I don't want to.
Take a before and after picture.
I feel younger already.
But the fabled fountain could not forestall the inevitable.
I'm 52 years old, and I went through my menopause, I guess I was 47 years old. And it was a very tumultuous time for me. First of all, I never thought I'd have menopause, and never thought I'd have a hard menopause. I always thought I was losing my period because I exercised too much. In fact, I continued using birth control and buying Tampax when it was on sale, even though I didn't need it. They were my reproductive ID cards, and I just couldn't be without them.
But soon, there were signs Sand could not ignore. Declining estrogen levels often cause hot flashes and night sweats, common symptoms of menopause.
Let me tell you something about night sweats. You're bolted up out of your sleep, and nothing happens for maybe a minute, and all of a sudden, from head to toe, you're drenched. I want you to know that after you have 7 of these, the next morning, you haven't had rest. That's why you act really, you're tense. You haven't had sleep. It's sleep deprivation. And you're moody, and you're tired, and it's horrible. And it's horrible for your mate, because he's going through this with you.
Oh, the tide's coming in. It was my first menopause. I didn't know how to handle it. Hayden, give me the ball. Come on, Hayden. You personally can never be comfortable. I mean, as a husband, because no matter how hot you are, she's cold, and no matter how cold you are, she's hot. So you have these sort of thermostat wars going on. It doesn't hit you that she's going through menopause. It just hits you that she's just being a pain in the neck. As a husband, you sort of feel helpless. You don't put 2 and 2 together. Because of my own impressions of menopause, I thought, you got to be 60 or 70 to be menopausal. I never thought of somebody who looks like Gail and Gail's age to be menopausal. I mean, that's for old people.
Menopause really had an effect on me and our marriage. We used to have the greatest sexual relationship, and all of a sudden, the great chill of menopause. The vaginal tissues became really thin and dry. Sex was excruciatingly painful. I couldn't decide what came first, not wanting to have sex or not wanting it because it hurt.
Sand had heard that hormone therapy could relieve her symptoms, but she was leery of the side effects of medication. Instead, she turned to natural remedies.
I decided menopause was a natural process, and I was going to go through it naturally. I don't want to do anything to my body that I don't have to.
But after months of vitamins and herbs, her symptoms persisted. And soon, there was more bad news.
I was living without hormones, doing not very well. Then all of a sudden, I get this phone call from my mother. And while visiting my sister, she fell and broke her pelvis in 2 places. And we started to talk about it. And I said to her, why didn't you do anything? Why didn't you go on hormones? And she said she was afraid of breast cancer. And We got off the phone and I said to myself, this is really scary.
Now Gail Sand had more to worry about than the symptoms of menopause. Like many postmenopausal women, she faced an increased risk of osteoporosis. She began to read about estrogen and discovered that the drug she had rejected for hot flashes was reported to be one of the best therapies for preventing bone loss. But she also read that estrogen was linked to cancer. How was she to weigh the potential benefits with the possible risks? Sand decided she needed more information, and she headed to a clinic devoted to women in menopause.
Good afternoon, Women's Medical and Diagnostic Center. This is Dina. How may I help you?
This center, an example of the growing field of menopause medicine, is run by Morris Notelevitz.
One of my patients, Gail Sand, approached me to have her evaluated for menopause. She was very reluctant to go onto hormone therapy, primarily because of a fear of breast cancer. And what really turned the issue around for her was the realization that she actually had a potential problem.
To evaluate Sand's degree of risk for osteoporosis, Notelevitz recommended a bone scan. The test revealed that her bone density was below average for her age group.
And it's also a good idea, as I mentioned before, to try and keep your shoulders back as far as possible, because that will take a great deal of tension off your muscle.
Osteoporosis will affect 1 out of every 4 postmenopausal women.
So actually what you really
Advanced osteoporosis can lead to bone fractures from even minor injuries. It can also cause shrinking as the weakened vertebrae of the spine compress.
Dowager's hump.
Such compression often causes a stooped posture, the so-called Dowager's hump.
These are x-rays of patients that we've just recently evaluated for osteoporosis. And as you can see from both x-rays, there's a very marked curvature of the upper portion of the spine. And this is characteristic of osteoporosis and Dowager's hump.
This is a microscopic view of healthy, dense bone from a premenopausal woman. This bone is from a postmenopausal woman with osteoporosis. It is thin, brittle, and vulnerable to fractures. Like many tissues in the body, bone is sensitive to estrogen levels, and long-term estrogen therapy slows the loss of bone mass. Falling estrogen levels also trigger menopause's common symptom,
I feel a power surge coming on.
the famous hot flash. Here is an enhanced time-lapse infrared picture of a typical 3-minute hot flash. The color bar at the bottom of the screen shows the temperature scale. Violet is cold and red is hot. When a flash begins, heart rate goes up and increased blood flow to the skin causes flushing. Skin temperature rises and the body begins to sweat. As sweat evaporates, the skin surface is cooled. Slowly, the temperature returns to normal. The majority of women experience hot flashes, which usually begin shortly before menopause and dissipate within a year or 2. Many women tolerate them without treatment, but for those with frequent or severe hot flashes, short-term hormone therapy can offer effective relief.
When you bring it down to the bottom line, patients basically have 2 choices in considering taking hormonal therapy. Hormonal therapy for the treatment of symptoms, that's pretty straightforward. And secondly, taking hormonal therapy to prevent conditions like osteoporosis.
I'm really frightened about it.
Right. Obviously, one of your real concerns about coming to see me and being put onto hormone therapy is your potential risk for osteoporosis. Absolutely. Well, there's no question about it that is one of the main reasons why many women should consider hormone therapy. And in your particular instance, it is true that because you've got a strong family history of osteoporosis, that does put you at risk. However,
Gail Sand's bone scan and family history indicated a risk for osteoporosis.
9% of young adults.
This, coupled with her troublesome symptoms, made her say yes to hormone therapy.
I feel wonderful about my decision. I know that my quality of life right now is very important to me. And I will deal with anything else that has to happen, that comes up. But right now I'm very comfortable with it. Look, I wish I didn't have to go on it, and I wish I felt this way without the hormones. But I didn't. And I'm okay with my decision.
Gail Sand made her choice for two reasons. In the short term, she wanted estrogen therapy to relieve her immediate symptoms. And she looked to the long-term use of hormones to reduce her risk for osteoporosis in later years. But what about the majority of women with mild symptoms and low risk for osteoporosis? Many physicians claim they too should use long-term hormone therapy. For today, estrogen is seen as a powerful drug that offers protection against the #1 killer of women over 50, cardiovascular disease.
Estrogens virtually affect every cell of the body in some way. Estrogen receptors are present in virtually every cell of the body. And there are very real reasons to believe that there are estrogen receptors in the heart. There are estrogen receptors in the great vessels. That has been shown.
Estrogen may affect the cardiovascular system in a number of ways. It may help to maintain normal blood pressure, to control harmful cholesterol, and to keep coronary arteries clear. In the 1980s and early 90s, researchers observed that women who used estrogen seemed to have significantly less heart disease than other women. As a result, there is now a trend to prescribe estrogen for women like Brenda Martin with a family history of heart disease. Martin, approaching menopause, takes a stress test to evaluate her cardiovascular health.
Brenda Martin typifies a patient that we see at this clinic. We found that she had hot flashes, but the main problem was that she had very high levels of cholesterol. Now we're concentrating on treating her for her potential for heart disease later on in life. And certainly part of the treatment will include the use of hormonal therapy.
I look at preventative medicine like this. Years ago, we didn't have fluoride in the water. We didn't have toothpaste with fluoride, and our teeth fell out of our mouths. Now they have fluoride. I have children, 4 of them have never had a cavity. We need to start using something to prevent things. Hormone replacement, if it's going to prevent something in the future, that's what we need to do.
This is not the first time hormones have been offered to women as good preventative medicine. In medical journals from the 1960s, advertisements sold estrogen as a way to give postmenopausal women a renewed vitality, a positive outlook, and a sense of well-being. Without it, a woman suffered from estrogen deficiency disease. An estrogen-deficient woman was said to be at risk for irritability, apathy, and depression, as well as for vaginal atrophy and bone loss. Estrogen sales soared as doctors and their patients responded to these images of decay. It was one of the most commonly sold drugs in the country by 1975. But soon, a disturbing trend was noticed. As sales increased, rates of cancer of the uterine lining began to climb. Estrogen sales plummeted when this cancer link was reported. By the 1980s, drug companies responded with a new approach, medications that combined lower doses of estrogen with the hormone progestin. This treatment mimics the menstrual cycle, usually causing monthly bleeding and menstrual-like symptoms, but it decreases the risk of uterine cancer. Today, hormone replacement therapy is widely seen as an important preventative strategy for most postmenopausal women. Surveys indicate nearly 30% of women between 45 and 64 have used estrogen, and the rate increases every year. Many physicians believe it should be even more widely prescribed. Researcher Rogerio Lobo.
The majority of women are going to benefit from being on estrogen long term. I think it's helping women to live better and healthier. It's preventative health care.
I think one of the most successful stories in the practice of medicine is the use of hormonal therapy as a preventive. Its impact as a preventive for the reduction in significant morbidity and mortality in women is second to no other drug that I'm aware of. The use of hormonal therapy will reduce heart disease by 50%. This is the major reason why women currently die in the United States.
But others question if medical practice is ahead of medical research. Elizabeth Barrett Connor had been a strong supporter of estrogen therapy and one of the scientists who first observed a cardiovascular benefit.
Well, that observation was, in my opinion, run away with a great deal of enthusiasm. And before any reasonable tests were done about the safety or the efficacy in a trial, people began to recommend it, and some doctors believe that every woman should take estrogen, and all you have to be is perimenopausal. You don't have to be in any high-risk group for any disease, that this is just a good thing. I find that I've backed off from that position because I think I'm afraid that we don't know all the answers.
Barrett Connor and colleague Irma Bain-Sims suspect the cardiovascular benefit came from observing women who sought out estrogen, health-conscious women at lower risk in the first place. They want to know if the benefit will stand up to a study that eliminates that bias.
Many people are currently buying into the potential of replacement therapies long-term being able to prevent cardiovascular disease. The problem is that we don't have the data. We don't have the clinical trials that have set up the question and rigorously, with a rigorous study design, then evaluated whether or not this is in fact true.
The PEPI study, headed by Mabane Sims, is designed to correct that. This is the first clinical trial to measure the impact of hormones on heart disease risk factors. In this randomized double-blind study, subjects are given one of 4 different therapies or a placebo.
Did you bring your pill containers with you?
I did.
Okay,
good. I think I left them up front.
Okay.
Like each participant, Ann Berkowitz is monitored for heart disease risk factors, including blood pressure and cholesterol levels. Soon after she went through menopause, Berkowitz's doctor recommended hormone therapy as good preventative health care.
I said, no, I really didn't feel that as long as I was feeling all right, I hadn't heard of any particular reason that convinced me of why I should be taking hormones. I didn't feel that there was enough data yet. But then getting into the study, I felt I was contributing to that data.
The PEPI study follows nearly 900 women at 7 medical centers around the country. In addition to conducting physical exams and a battery of tests, researchers collect blood samples for extensive analysis. The study will begin to answer one of the most controversial questions about hormone therapy. Does it indeed significantly affect the risk factors that lead to cardiovascular disease? These results are particularly critical, for long-term hormone therapy is prescribed more and more often for the prevention of heart disease.
One of the things that women need to understand is the complexity of the estrogen issue. We're talking about whether or not the replacement therapy should be used for menopausal symptoms. That's early on in the menopausal years. We're also talking about whether or not replacement therapy should be used as a preventive measure for cardiovascular disease, something that basically will continue over a 30-year time frame for women once they become menopausal.
Because PEPI lasts just 3 years, it won't assess risks of long-term estrogen or combined hormone use.
I think the big issue for most women is, does estrogen increase the risk of breast cancer? And if so, just how big a risk is that? I would say that the most persuasive evidence about the increased risk of breast cancer comes from the few studies that have looked at hormone use in relation to the duration of therapy. And the few women in those studies, and the numbers are small, who had taken estrogen for more than 10 years in some studies, more than 15 in some studies, or more than 20 years in some studies, almost every study found an increased risk.
If there is a risk, it's so small that it's hard to really perceive. Yes, there are data that suggest that the longer you're on it, the greater the risk, but that's true of anything. The risk of breast cancer, the way I analyze the data, if it exists in susceptible women that we can identify, unfortunately, and probably is only about 20% increase over what would be baseline.
Breast cancer strikes 11 out of every 100 women over 50. A 20% increase would mean that approximately 13 out of every 100 would develop breast cancer. Experts interpret the reliability of these findings differently, and they disagree on how to weigh the possible cancer increase with the possible heart benefits.
The long-term benefits, do they outweigh the long-term risk? And that is the fundamental question. That is why the federal government has put $600 million into the Women's Health Initiative, because those questions are not answerable in their present form.
The recently launched Women's Health Initiative is designed to quantify the risks and benefits of long-term hormone use. The ambitious study will follow 25,000 women for 9 years. Some will use placebos, others estrogen, and a third group estrogen with progestin. The results are due after the year 2007. Some researchers, however, believe these new findings will only reinforce earlier observations about estrogen's benefits.
Well, you've asked the question, how can we treat women with hormones without knowing exactly what we're doing? I think we very much know what we're doing. I think there's a tremendous amount of literature and database about the use of hormonal treatment, to the point where the PEPI trial and the proposed Women's Health Initiative could be considered to be unethical, because both of those require placebo treatment.
I think if I went out and treated all the men in America over the age of, let's say, 40, with testosterone to prevent bone loss, impotence, heart disease, whatever else it might cause, that there'd be a lot of people running around saying, but you might cause prostate cancer, but it might not actually be good for the heart, it might be bad for the heart. I mean, and a lot of people will be saying, we can't do this, you have to have a trial. I feel the same way about women.
Okay, Gail, for this next picture, I want you to step back and relax.
Many women, like Gail Sand, cannot wait for all the answers to be in before making their own decisions about hormone therapy. For those who choose hormones, doctors recommend annual mammograms and regular examinations.
Breathe and release. You okay? Good.
A woman will have to make a decision with partial answers. If she chooses no therapy, she's going to assume risk of osteoporosis and possibly heart disease. If she chooses therapy, she may assume the side effects of hormone replacement. She may also assume the possible risk of breast cancer.
While researchers debate the risks and benefits of hormone therapy, a woman's decision often hinges on her own experience of menopause. Gail Sand feared osteoporosis, but she also had troublesome symptoms. How common are these symptoms?
I turned 58 in November. I had my last period when I was 53. I never paid much attention to symptoms until the Institute study asked me questions.
Should I just put down some paper just to give some work?
Call me Pat, Linda.
Okay, I'll be
No
glad.
one ever calls me Patricia.
Okay, I'll be glad to call you Pat. Call me Linda.
Since 1981, Pat McLaughlin has taken part in a study to determine how most women experience menopause.
Menstrual problems.
No.
Fluid retention?
No, I don't think so.
Any hormones, such as estrogen?
Interviewers from the Massachusetts Women's Health Study make annual visits to a randomly selected group of 400 middle-aged women to monitor their hormone levels, general health, and menopause symptoms.
Trouble with bladder control or frequency?
No.
Rapid heartbeat?
No.
Hot flashes, or hot flushes, as some people call them?
Maybe one.
Okay, a yes then.
The fact of the matter is that I didn't know I was having hot flashes. The people used to say to me, when they first started asking me, have you had hot flashes? I would say, well, I don't think so. Well, they said, if you did, you'd know it. But I really didn't consciously notice many changes that I labeled menopause.
Trouble sleeping?
No.
From such extensive interviews, a picture of menopause emerges. One that is at odds with the current image of menopause as a troublesome passage. Study director Sonia McKinley.
Most of the information that's published on menopause that comes from physicians' impressions of women that they're dealing with in their offices, so that they think that's the norm. And so by taking a random scientific sample from the community, we're getting a true representative cross-section.
The study indicates that while the majority of women do report hot flashes, these are usually mild and occur for a year or two. And of the women surveyed, most consider their menopause to be a neutral or even a positive experience.
The typical picture that we're finding from the Massachusetts Women's Health Study is that when we look at menopause in the context of all the other things that are going on in a woman's life at about this age, say between about 45 and 55, that the menopause becomes relatively incidental.
We get what the groom likes.
Yeah, we'll give him his choice.
He has his choice of vegetable.
Right.
That's it, okay.
We're finding most of the women at this time have adolescent or adult children who are either leaving home or have left home. They have husbands who are more likely to be nearer retirement because husbands tend to be older. And most women do not seek out hormone replacement therapy for prevention of heart disease or prevention of osteoporosis.
And for women like Pat McLaughlin, who see no need for hormones, McKinley offers common sense advice for ensuring long-term health.
In terms of heart disease, we have known for many years the worst thing a woman can do is smoke. In terms of hip fractures, probably the best thing to do is to be healthy, have good muscle tone, good balance, and be active.
Good preventative health for bones and heart also includes regular exercise and a low-fat diet rich in calcium and vitamins. For Pat McLaughlin, menopause is a time for healthy living and for embracing the inevitable passage into older age.
It somehow seems strange to me to try to avoid the autumn of life. It would be like having a New England year without fall. And it seems that I'd be missing something if I spent fall railing about it and not paying attention to what was happening, railing about the fact that summer was gone or that spring was gone. I'd miss the beauty, of the fall.
But some observers worry that it can be difficult to make peace with the autumn of life, for too often aging itself is seen as a disease. Anthropologist Margaret Locke.
The young woman is taken as the model of what all women should be, i.e. all women should be able to reproduce, all women should have the bones of a 25 or 30-year-old, all women should have the same kind of arteries and the same kind of muscles and so on. And so you inevitably set up aging as a pathological process when you think this way.
Do new medical treatments encourage women to avoid the realities of aging?
Let the world keep on a-turning, let the fire keep on a-burning, let our love keep
I thought everybody, when they reached late 40s, that everyone took a hormone replacement. I just thought that was a way of life. Now it's time to take hormones.
Country and Western singer Joni Mosby Mitchell did not wait for symptoms to medicate her menopause. To sidestep the change, her doctor offered her hormone replacement therapy to mimic the hormone levels of a younger woman.
I'm 54. And menopause, I don't know. I've been taking hormone supplements, so I don't know what it's like to go through menopause. I really don't. I can't help you with that. I've never had any of the symptoms.
B.I. Fairdo.
Here's
Where'd you get that picture at?
Oh, I found it from some of your promotional stuff.
I was pregnant with Lindy there.
Mitchell also turned to medical science to circumvent another hallmark of menopause, the end to childbearing. A devoted mother, Mitchell has had a baby every decade since the 1950s.
You were cute!
In the early 1990s, she and her second husband were ready for another.
This was in 62.
But by then, Mitchell was past menopause, no longer producing eggs.
There you are in 62, that little beehive.
I was looking at the local newspaper here in Ventura, and there was a small article, and it was way in the back. It was very small. And it explained just a little bit about what Dr. Sauer did. And I called him, and we made an appointment, and I knew that was for me.
Joni? Hey, how you doing? How are you?
Mark Sauer directs an in vitro fertilization program that specializes in egg donations for older women.
Joni was unique in those days, around 1990 or so, because she was in her 50s. We had looked at doing egg donation in the 40-year-olds. It was a natural progression to do it in the 50-year-old women. Joni fit the mold in the sense of she passed all the screening examinations. She had good reasons for wanting to do this, a sound marriage, a good home situation with her nuclear family, good support system.
Well, I thought she was crazy. Actually, I was working, and she called and says, told me about the article she read. And we were already talking about adoption. And I thought she was absolutely out of her mind. But I said, they're not going to accept her anyway, so go ahead and play your little game. But they did.
Mark Sauer took on Joni Mitchell's case.
This is the same donor as we
Because postmenopausal women no longer produce eggs, egg donation is the only way they can become pregnant. After a donor was identified, she was given drugs to stimulate the development of multiple eggs. The rest of the procedure followed the now almost routine in vitro fertilization. Eggs are fertilized with sperm, and after conception, embryos are transferred to the uterus of the woman, which has been primed with large doses of hormones. Only about 15% of in vitro fertilization procedures result in a pregnancy. Joni Mitchell was one of the lucky ones. On March 31st, 1992, she became America's oldest menopausal mom, giving birth to a baby boy.
Hello.
Morgan is now 2 years old.
Can I have a kiss? That's not the way it goes. Thank you.
Since his remarkable birth, many more women in their 50s and even 60s have had babies. These births have provoked controversy about the well-being of the children and the health of the mothers.
I think that it is inappropriate for women to have babies when they're older for a couple of reasons. I think one of the most important reasons being that one has to give them very, very powerful medication and with very, very powerful side effects, and that the strain on the older female body is enormous and that the woman is put at risk. And I think secondly, when the child becomes a teenager, the woman is going to be an old lady, and that you need all the energy you have got when you have teenage children.
The child's going to look at it like, I'm glad to get here. I don't care how old my mother was. Now, seriously, let's think about that. I don't know of anybody that wished they weren't born. I mean, I don't know anybody like that.
Just want to review with you.
So far, Mark Sauer has helped over 36 postmenopausal women become mothers.
It was a very natural thing for me to want to take on these older patients. Now, why would we bring your in on Monday? I have not seen a difference between a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old's need for a child in terms of her own pain, in terms of her expressed emotional needs, than a woman in her 20s. So to me, this was a very natural extension of what I do.
While egg donation extends fertility to postmenopausal women, other researchers look for ways to make menopause itself obsolete.
The ovary is a bit like a clock. It's wound up in fetal life. It's wound up with thousands, in fact millions of eggs, and these run down with time. It may be possible to cheat time.
Roger Gosden proposes cheating time with techniques to extend the functional life of ovaries. Here, the outer layer of a mouse ovary, where most eggs lie, is surgically removed. The tissue is then frozen and stored. After thawing, it is grafted back into the animal. The ovary functions again, producing eggs that can be fertilized and become healthy baby mice. Theoretically, this would work in a human female. Ovarian tissue removed early in life and stored could be replanted after menopause.
I believe in the next few years we will see this technique being introduced, at least for patients at risk of premature menopause. Who knows about other people, whether other people would want to have their normal tissue stored so that they might have more fertile eggs in their late 30s and 40s.
Inevitably, there's going to be more and more experimentation and attempts to intrude into the life cycle process. This is the heart of the scientific endeavor, and I think that it is inevitable. I think we're going to see more and more intrusion into the reproductive cycle, both the beginning and the middle, and in the postmenopausal phase too.
Those people who condemn reproductive technology, and including the possibilities of controlling reproduction to a later age, I think should speak to the patients involved.
I'm so excited about reproductive technology, and I try and keep up to speed as much as I can with what's going on and what are kind of the new frontiers in that field, because I know that that's probably my hope for the future.
For Aileen Lee, medical advances offer her the health of a normal young woman and perhaps one day the opportunity to bear a child. But what about women who are indeed at the midpoint of their lives? Today, women can choose to extend the span of their fertility beyond menopause. They can opt for drugs that mimic the hormone levels of younger women, and perhaps forestall osteoporosis and maybe even heart disease. Or they can reject medical intervention. Today, each will make her decision against a backdrop of scientific uncertainty. In the end, the right choices will be as varied as the women themselves.
I think going through all of this, it gives you something. It gives you a wonderful sense about yourself. You realize that you're getting to this part of your life rather than the beginning part. And now I'm on the other side of it, and there's a calmness about myself. Here I am, yes. And I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to be a postmenopausal woman.
Educators and home viewers can purchase this program and many other NOVA programs for $19.95 plus shipping and handling. To order a video cassette, call 1-800-255-9424. production of WGBH Boston. Funding for NOVA is provided by
Merck, dedicated to pharmaceutical research, committed to discovery, improving health, extending life. Merck.
And Lockheed, America's aerospace company, supporting math, science, and engineering education for national technology leadership. Major funding for NOVA is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by annual financial support from viewers like you.
This is PBS.
Next time on NOVA, a brutal murder in the Amazon rainforest horrifies the world. The victims had been decapitated and their internal organs removed and eaten. The trail of clues leads to the discovery of a tribe which had long been thought to be extinct, drawing them into a dramatic clash with the outside world. NOVA travels deep into the rainforest in search of the tribe that time forgot. That's next time on NOVA.
For a transcript of the NOVA program you've just seen, send $5 to this address or call 1-303-831-9000.